Alrighty. Looks like we are live. What's up, guys? My name is Nate Hibbert. I am here once again on the live stream. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. It looks like all the tech stuff is working out, so that's great. If you're watching this live, please feel free to drop a comment down below or in the chat box, wherever that's out nowadays, letting me know that you're watching this live, because I greatly appreciate that and want to interact with you guys. I think we've had a few people jump on and just not say anything, but we'll try to get better at noticing when people are commenting down below. Steven's going to be, I'm going to call him the producer from now on. So my brother, Steven, the producer, he is here watching the live stream, and he will be a part of the live stream in just a little bit. But for right now, I'm going to just rant to you guys a little bit about what's been going on this week. I missed last week. We don't have to get into that too much, but I was out of town. So I'm now here, ready to get back into the drone stuff. And feeling very positive about it. I don't know what happened. Actually, I didn't know what happened, and it's a story I'll share in a little bit. But I feel like things are just clicking for me right now, and really making, like, I was kind of like hesitantly jumping into this drone space and like, yeah, I think it's cool and I want to like figure it out. And now I'm like, I need more drone in my life. So I'm just figuring out how to best get into this hobby more seriously. And I think part of that is just seeing some of the opportunities that are coming to me, and also being able to see what the future would look like inside of droning. If you've watched previous live streams, you might have seen me just be very, which I'm still going to be, like flailing around in this space, but I really had no true direction or like what I was trying to do. The only thing I kept saying was like, I don't want to race, because it just seemed weird kind of making this competitive when I don't even know enough to really keep myself in the air for longer than 5 minutes. So that's where I'm at now, where things are starting to click because of some of the opportunities that are arising to actually work with people and get my skills, or put my skills to use. I'm thinking that I'm going to go more the cinematic route, which is not a true passion that I have of like filmmaking, but it is a passion to help people, and I just think that that's one way to use this skill set to help people. So I'm self-conscious now because Steven told me that I'm saying too much, so that's why my talking's a little bit strange tonight. But there were 3 businesses that came up to me recently, or 3 opportunities that kind of came my way, that kind of passed right in front of me, that I could have jumped into if I had better skills in the side of the 3D drone world, not 3D drone world, but the FPV drone world, or if I had the right tools for those opportunities. And basically they were just asking for someone to take drone shots for them. So I think I shared one of them on a previous live stream, which is a garden that's around here. They share food with the neighborhood and the community, and they grow basically in our backyard, which is really cool. We kind of stumbled upon it walking some trails in the woods, and we're really excited about that because my wife actually works with them on some of the software side of what they're trying to do. And so I was like, oh man, how awesome would this be able to like get some shots for them? But I know that I don't have, I mean, I'm still flying my Acro B, and we're going to talk about gear a little bit more tonight. So this isn't the greatest drone to go out and get shots with. If you guys have seen any of the footage that we've taken, it's been pretty bad. Like, it can barely make things out. It's great while I'm flying and it's great to learn, but it's not something you would want to like put up on an Instagram post or anything like that. So getting the skill set down with this drone is awesome, but getting actual footage for clients, probably not something I would suggest. So those 2 things have been kind of holding me back as far as like jumping into some of these opportunities. The other 2, one's actually a more serious, I wouldn't call it a movie or anything like that high level, but there are lots of like indie films and things being made in this area, and there was a posting asking for a drone flight that someone actually brought to my attention because they heard that I was getting into droning, and they were just like, hey, is this something that you would want to do? And I was like, not quite yet, but I definitely think that's like another thing nudging me in that direction of like, man, there are just opportunities even without me really looking for them. Even just the like rumors that I'm a drone pilot now, which is like just starting starting off, it seems very exciting for me to jump into this world. So yeah, there's lots of stuff going on inside of the cinematic world, and I think that the drone skills could fit over there. And it's kind of the least friction way to use the skill set that I'm trying to acquire for some good or for some community building possibilities. So that's where I'm at. The definition of luck, which is like when preparation meets opportunity combine, I definitely feel like the opportunities were, but I was not prepared, so kind of missing out on some of that stuff. So I wasn't lucky just because I personally wasn't prepared, but seeing those opportunities, like if I get prepared, then I can be lucky, quote unquote. And so I think the way to get prepared is just to start honing my skills a little bit more seriously. I think that if I see my drone career or hobby or whatever I'm going to start calling this, I would say like the end of the first chapter is coming to a close. And I'm starting to see that second chapter opening where it's like, okay, now it's time to at least get a little bit more organized with the type of flying that I'm trying to do, the just everything about it. I can tell a quick story right now. This weekend, I got a chance to go up to Michigan to be with some family, which was a good time. And I was able to bring my drone. So I was actually able to fly with my drone for the very first time. I reached out to not Mr. Steele, but the other guy I always quote on here, Metal Rocks FPV on Instagram, and just shot him a message. It was because I was reading a couple articles. I was like, traveling with these lithium ion batteries, like, are they going to give me any problems, or is this going to be hazardous at all? And he said no. He actually told me, gave me a link to a sticker to print out, just so if they did say anything, I can at least say like, hey, I know that there's lithium ion batteries in here. So I printed that out and stuck it on there. If you guys want that, you can comment below, or I'll try to remember to throw that in the description. See if you could prompt me to do that after this. So I wasn't worried about flying with it, but it was just like all those questions that I didn't know because I'm flying with some new technology and things in my bag. The first time that I went through the security, I actually took it all out and put it in its own bin and all that stuff. The second time I was just like, I'll just chance it. We had a little bit more time, so if they pulled my bag, I would have learned my lesson. But my bag went through really quickly. They didn't even like stop it and look at it or anything. So I would say do your own research, definitely, but my luck the first time traveling with the drone with these 1S batteries, they didn't give me any hassle, so that was a good thing. But anyways, I got to travel with my drone and ended up getting up there and forgetting the antennas for my actual headset. So they plug in right here. They're actually in the bag behind me that I usually take when I'm going to fly my drone, if I'm going to, travel outside the house. But I completely forgot them because it's so much easier to travel with this thing without those attached on here. So I was really bummed out not being able to fly up there. I had kind of the perfect opportunity. My sister has a nice house on a couple of acres of land, and we had a little boat going in her pond, and she had a four-wheeler that was driving around. I was like, oh, all these opportunities to like chase all these things and just hone my skills a little bit more, and to share the FPV drone experience with my friends and family that were there. That would have been kind of the cherry on top of that day. But unfortunately, I missed out on that because I forgot really two pieces of gear that would have allowed me to actually use that headset. I could fly maybe like 4 feet in front of my face, but that's not all that exciting. So I just ended up packing it up and putting it away and being sad for a second, but then still enjoying the time up there with family. So that's just like, I think where the ball started rolling, like I need to be a lot more organized with my gear, with like the type of training that I'm trying to do, with the time that I'm actually putting into this, because I'm kind of out of that phase of like, what is this new wonderful world of FPV drone, and more like, okay, how do I take advantage of these opportunities that are coming my way, and just try to make the most out of the time. I'm growing up, I'm now married, I have a job, I have all these things going on, so anytime that I put into this, it's not just like it can be lackluster. It could be if it was something that I was just like messing around with still, or playing around with, but that's what I'm saying. Like something has changed just in the way that I'm thinking about droning, where it's like, okay, now is the time to try to take this a little bit more seriously and enjoy the opportunities that are coming my way. So that's where we're at. this week. I'm also doing this in other parts of my life, just being like pretty routine about like my morning routine and when I come home from work and all that kind of stuff. So I think it will be kind of natural for me to do this with the drone flying stuff. But I think sharing this experience with you guys will be good. And someone who is very good at helping me share the knowledge that's inside my head is my brother, my producer, my... I'll leave out what happened on your birthday escapades, but my friend, Steven. So welcome to the show, Steven. Thank you for being patient for me to get that rant off.
Do you have a name for this podcast, brother?
Not really. I call it Wingman because we call everything Wingman, but
okay.
Something I can think about.
Making some notes, and I was like, oh, I don't even know what the name is on this. I do want to continue to challenge you and make this podcast very challenge heavy. I think listening to a lot of podcasts also got me excited just for this journey and starting to put a baseline into all the stuff that we're doing. I feel like if we had a podcast from when we were doing all the businesses, it would have been very interesting just to hear all these stories, because the journey that you're on, I think, is interesting for people to listen to. And even like going to Michigan and people asking us, oh, what's going on? How you doing? I like watching this. I love when you guys are doing the videos. And even like for my birthday and hearing other people go, oh, remember that video that you put up for this? Remember that video you put up for that? And I was just like, oh, the family that we have that sometimes we don't talk to due to the pandemic or whatever is going on, they still are like catching up with us. And it was just a very insightful piece where it's like, oh, this journey that you're on, that people are watching, this is how they continue to like join us on these things. And I think this is why we call ourselves Wingman, because we like to help other people, but we also like to just educate and let people know what we have going on. But I would challenge you to interview more people on just like what you're discovering and seeing if you can find people that can help you speed up that process. So you now getting opportunities to make money with your hobby, I would challenge you to find people to interview, to just ask them like, what are money making opportunities? What are monetizing opportunities? What should I be focused on? I think we were thinking tricks, but I think you're getting better. Even seeing you fly without the goggles, I was like, oh, you have gotten way better from the last 2 weeks, or even when I came up to see you a week ago. It was just very interesting. I think I would challenge you because I feel like another aha moment, or like increasing your knowledge and your ability to help other people, is bringing in other people that you interview for what the aha moments are to you. Like interview people that are making money with it, just so you can see, is that an option for you? Is that something that you enjoy? I have no idea, but I think talking to more people in this space is going to be way more beneficial, especially hearing opportunities coming your way just from people know that you're flying drones. So what better than letting people know, but actually going to the industry and talking to people to find out what possibilities there are.
Right. No, I 100% agree with you. It's still a little intimidating to think about like interviewing somebody. But I think the challenge piece, or if like I'm helping somebody out, it will be a lot more natural just to ask them some questions about like, why did you pick me? Like, what can I like actually help with? I'm starting to see like opportunities even inside of like me trying to get organized. I've been looking up like flight log apps and those types of things. And I found one actually that's very specific for quadricopters, and not necessarily FPV. It's more for like the DJI stuff. So even in that space of just being like, oh man, like I already like kind of have a checklist. I mean, I want to refine it and all that kind of stuff, but I think this would be something helpful to put out there into the world. So like as far as like monetizing, like if you're like me and want to be organized out the gate, like here's how I'm going to organize, and so you guys can tap into that as well. With a simple app that would allow you to like check, do I have all my gear? What's the pre-flight like regiment that I want to run through? I learned checking for screws inside of your FPV drone that you've been thrashing around like is something you need to do. So all these little things that I'm learning, if I could just put those in like checklist form, and then also have like the flight log in that same app and all that stuff. So I'm feeling good about the monetizing side of this. I feel like a little bit of a hypocrite now, because I was like 2 shows ago. Like, I don't want to monetize this thing yet. Like, I'm just enjoying it as a hobby. I know Steven's going to talk business, but I just want to do it for fun. But I think, like, part of that is, it's not just like I want to make money with this thing, but it's like, if I want to do this, I'm going to have to invest in it more. And it's really nice to be like the 3D printer. Like, I'm making money with the 3D printer, so I don't feel bad
fund
investing.
your hobby. I think that could
Right.
be a goal of yours, is like, how can I fund this hobby?
Yeah. Funding it, and then also, like, I think a really good way to build community like I want to do is not just like doing a live stream once, but having actual resources that people are going to want, and that they'll like find it helpful, because then they'll want to find out, like, oh, who made this? Do they have anything else? Because that's exactly what I'm doing. Like, I'm looking for these apps and like looking at who's making them and trying to find people's emails and just talk with them. So that's the interview thing, like, seems a little overwhelming, but it's just because I've never done anything really in that vein. I've been interviewed before, but I've never been the person really like taking those interviews or having a direct like line of questioning or whatever. So
okay, you like talk to a lot of people though, and I feel like that's essentially what an interview is.
Yeah, I think like anything, when you like say that word, it's like a very pristine word of just
you have like almost like a knee-jerk reaction to it. Okay, I get you.
Yeah, it's like I don't know what an interview for me would look like, but even as I start thinking about it more, like the podcasts that I listen to, a lot of them are like that interview style where they have a guest on, and those just seem like conversations, but I still listen to them for an hour to 3 hours because I find them interesting. So that's why I think calling this a podcast and asking someone to come on the podcast almost even feels like less overwhelming than I want to have an interview with this person. So
yeah, I guess you're doing the action that I'm saying, which is an interview, but you're just framing it in the way that you want to do it. So if you see his interview as like the 60 Minutes or Larry King, like, I don't think you necessarily have to do that as an interview style. But I do think podcasts and talking to people, like, that's how I see interviews. So just seeing the same word, but maybe 2 different sides of that coin. But I think we're on the same page. Something else that you said is that who made this? I think you could almost have like a who made this section. Like, if you saw an app that you think might be helpful, even if it is DJI, just show that on the podcast. Like, I know you like to do that intro and just like let people know kind of what your story is. But then for this part where we're talking, or the interview or whatever, like having that section brought aside to like, what did you learn this week? What interesting things did you find out about? If that app is something that you did, or even like the simulator that you were playing around with, like pulling that up on screen and doing a screen grab of that, I think is extremely helpful just because of the visual aspect. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing to do with podcast, but since we're starting on YouTube, I think that's a good use of some of this time, is just show people like what you actually saw, how you found it, why it's helpful to you, and just explain it from your point of view.
No, it crossed my mind. I didn't have like a good way of like screen sharing the phone to show the app off. It's really simple. And it even made me think, like, this is so simple, I could just build this for myself, but I don't know if I want to get into the world of app making. So even partnering with the guy who made it specifically for DJI, I feel like very simple changes he could make it for FPV. And he actually has his contact inside of the app, so that's definitely something I'm going to do, is reach out to him.
Yeah, and it's something you've done in the past. Remember when we were doing print on demand?
Yeah,
we reached out to that person that had that. I guess it was really a macro that they turned into like a software, and then you developed a piece for our business. And we kind of promoted this stuff with them. So that's why I said, like, this would be super interesting to me, because we could talk about like, oh, we did POD, and then if you're interested in the episode, we'll go back to this episode. But I think this journey that you're on is your story. Just the way that you learn and want to help people, I think, is very unique. And the idea of challenges, I think, is what people can kind of get around, or go like, oh, I want to also challenge myself. I have a hobby. Oh, I like learning about drones. I also want to fund my hobby. Let me listen to Dino to see how he's doing it. How is he? Not necessarily like this is the only way to do it, but here's our journey into this, and you can be the reporter in the space, going to talk to other people from your point of view. Not everybody wants to be a drone pilot, but if you're into droning and you want to fund your hobby, I think this is what you're good at, is being able to fund your hobbies in very unique ways. That's why I always get excited when you're into new hobbies, because I'm like, oh, here's some more money making opportunities.
No, that's really true too. Like, I think there's a large section of the population that would be the FPV population that would be interested in, like, how do I do this and fund it? Because like, if you're even the race teams, right? Like, look at any car manufacturer. Like, if Mazda's main goal is to race their car, they still have to make the Mazda 3, which is like a fun enthusiast car, but you're not racing that really anywhere. Like that's just from getting to A to B. So you still have to do the things that allow you to fund the enthusiastic side of it, or the
that's very interesting from like a brand perspective, because you can even think of it on the other side. Like most of the people that are flying drones are not brands or manufacturers, but they still have to get sponsors. Like there's always a money side behind. And maybe that's a very unique view too. And maybe that's what I can add a little bit more, is just like, how are these people making money? Where is the money in this? How do you fund this? Are you a brand where it's like you can make the Mazda 3 or any other enthusiast car to sell the car to then pay for the racing? Or are you just a weekend warrior trying to go out and race? Here's some ways to fund it, instead of going to the junkyard and like constantly banging your knuckles against things, speaking from experience, and like trying to fund this thing, and you're pulling your hair out and you're fighting with your wife, and it's just like a nightmare situation. How can you make it
a little personal there?
Yeah. It is real deeply. So how could you do this hobby that you love and fund it in a way that's enjoyable across the board? And I think this is why I get excited when I tell you have a hobby, because I know you'll get into it, you'll pay money up front, but then I know, like, even if you think, like before you were saying, I might spend $2,000 on this, I know the $2,000 is not coming from like trading your time for your job, making those hours, or making the money from trading your hours. It's more just like, I might start with that. Like I have this job and I might fund a little bit of this, but then I want this thing to be self-contained, because regardless if I want to pick it up later or continue on or drop it, I don't want to spend all my hard-earned time money for just this thing. I want it to kind of fund itself, and then turn that into, I'm always on the back end turning it into businesses where it's making way more than the hobby is costing. But I know this is a unique way that you go in. And I'm always just like, I am the older brother, but I'm following behind your passion, your interest, just to make money behind it, because that's my only passion interest is where is the money?
Yeah, and it's I don't know, I feel like those opportunities like slapped me in the face. Like before I left for Michigan and coming back, like just hearing these 3 opportunities where it was just like I'm saying no simply because I don't have the right gear and the skills at this point, but it's like I already am looking at better gear. I'm already training to get better skills. It's like, okay, what's the obvious next step? Like, let's not deny what's the universe is throwing out there. Like, let's just go ahead and walk into this and say, okay, like if I get the better gear, if I get my skills up, then if cinematic jobs are out there, then I shouldn't be like, no, I want to race first. Like I want to build the fastest and lightest drone and like put myself in even more of a hole because now I'm spending $10,000 on a drone or whatever. It's like, no, let me just do the cinema thing, because that's going to open up more relationships with businesses in my area and allow me allow me to build drones for whatever the heck I want to do in future. But
so I have just an aha question, I guess.
Go ahead.
You said it slapped you in the face. Do you think this is because we've started so many businesses and done so many things that like you're just identifying opportunities a lot quicker?
That could be it. Really, that quote about like luck just like kind of stung in my ears, where it was like that preparation meets opportunity. I was like, there's opportunity like out here, even though I'm not personally like searching for it. It's other people in my close circle, because I'm not telling the world that, well, I guess kind of by putting it on YouTube, but it's not like I'm telling every person I meet that, I'm doing like FPV drone stuff now. Like I would say 90% of the people out there don't know I'm doing it. But these opportunities are still coming to me with even that like little amount of influence in the FPV space, in the drone space in general. So it probably is some of that past knowledge of like, if there's opportunity here, I should probably like take it, because that's a lot of the way we operated previously, like following trends for shirts or whatever we were doing. But yeah, I didn't really think about it that way, but it just feels like it's hard to deny with, it's not like they're the highest paying gigs in the world, but it's like, if I have very little skills and I'm not really putting it out there that I'm doing this thing like professionally, I have no like portfolio or anything like that, and I'm getting like opportunities to build a portfolio, then it's like, this is probably something I should look into. Especially if I enjoy it. Like I'm already looking at buying more gear. It wasn't like, oh, here are the opportunities, now let me go out and buy this gear. It was like, no, I already wanted 2 separate different drones that I'm probably going to spend my money on, just for the love of the hobby. And if I can use those as tools to fund it, then yeah, it wouldn't make sense to do it any other way from our past experiences.
I think even like you traveling to Michigan with your drone was a learning experience. Because imagine if you got paid to do a job and you forgot those like antennas.
Oh, I'd be crushed.
Yeah.
I
But I
would,
think you're learning these lessons just from the hobby aspect of it. I think
right.
this is why I'm interested in how you do hobbies anyway, because you're always like very frugal when you get into them, and then as you grow, it's like me. I spent $100 and I was like, I'm out. Like I don't want this hobby at all. But it only cost me $100. Like I didn't buy the DJI Maverick 2, the one that I wanted that was like $1,500. Like I didn't spend $1,500 and then go, I don't want it. I spent $100. Then I would have been like, oh, if I like this, then I'll step my way up. And then like, really, what do I want to do with this? I feel like you did the same thing. You want to do FPV drones. Racing was kind of the pinnacle of that, but you go, I don't really want to step into that. Let me just start with the lowest cost thing and see if I enjoy it. Then from this joy, what is the next steps for you? And I think you're seeing now that there are money-making opportunities. So if you're thinking about two different drones, I'm sure they're not just like in a bubble. You think about the two different drones and the possibilities that come with that drone.
Yeah, and something I want to talk about more tonight because we missed it last week is the gear that I have, but also just like this idea because, like you just mentioned, that Maverick 2, like I probably could purchase that drone and start taking these opportunities like right away. So this is kind of an internal battle that I'm having. I don't think that I like turn tail and just buy a DJI drone and go out and try to get like, very amateur shots to help people, but it is a like a nagging question in the back of my head is like, what is the difference between these two drones if I'm just using them for cinema? I know with the PVG drone, the FPV drone, sorry, I try to mix the two together. With the FPV drone, I feel as if I can get like different shots and more acrobatic shots, but it's like, how much does that really matter for the opportunities that are presenting themselves? So maybe that's the answer, is I need to look at the opportunities and see like what type of flying would be necessary. But if they're just looking for, a Maverick 2 shot and I'm trying to bring like all this FPV gear and tell them why it's better, it's like, is that the road that I want to go down? Yeah. Like I'd have to educate them on like this finicky drone that, is probably more problematic than it is just throwing up a Maverick 2 and getting the shot. It's like, I got to think through all these things. So I think that's like a little like foreshadowing to some of the problems or conversations I'm going to have with people if it ends up going, that serious or whatever. But those are the questions that I'm thinking about now. But as far as like my excitement in the hobby, it's definitely pointing towards those 3-inch Cinewhoops. I've joined a couple of Facebook groups and people who are building those and just looking at that more seriously, because I like the form factor, what they're capable of, but just answering some more of those questions before I go out and like buy one to build or whatever else. But before we get, unless you have any questions about that, I want to actually talk about the gear that I have with me right now, the gear that I've purchased that isn't delivered to me yet after like 2 months of waiting, and then kind of the future gear that I think I'm gonna probably end up getting. All right, so let's jump into that. I got to move some things around real quick, and I actually forgot to pull up the 2 new drones that I was looking at. I'll try and do this while you talk about something random. Okay, here we go. So this is the actual drone that I have. It's called the Noob drone, or the company that makes it is called Noob drone, and the specific drone is the Acro B Brain Pro. So I know that's a whole lot to say, but that's the exact model that I have. I showed this last week quickly to show like this little.
You're highlighting that thing, but I'm blocking it. I would almost pull our pictures off. That way you can just share.
Oh, gotcha. Screen. Okay.
From a producer standpoint.
There we go, producer. Thank you. So this is what I was highlighting. This is the name over here. It's $80. which actually has gone down in price. It was like 90 when I was looking at it, and now it's 80, so that's good. And this is, so what I was saying is this little yellow wire, I thought I had cut it, but apparently that just like sticks out like that. So I was getting all ready to solder, was looking at different soldering irons and all this stuff, and I was like, oh, I don't even need to do that yet. So I'm gonna hold on that until I really break something that I need to fix. But yeah, this is the drone. It's pretty simple. It's extremely tough. I've been dropping this thing from pretty far up. I crashed it into some trees trying to find line of sight this weekend because I didn't have my headset, all types of stuff. And I have missed 2 screws, which actually just came in the mail, so I'm excited about that to fix this thing back up. But I was flying it with 2 out of the 4 screws in there, and it was still taking a beating. So I was kind of pushing it because I've already mentally committed to buying new drones. So I was like, if I break this one, it'll just be learning experience and I'll get to fix it and all that good stuff. So yeah, I'm being a little bit reckless with it now, but this thing, I think, for just starting off is an amazing value. I know there are a ton of other ones kind of at this price point, and these little mini whoops. So I have nothing else to compare this to, but as far as someone starting off, like, there was no really steep learning curve with like the technology side of things. There's a steep learning curve for flying for sure, but as far as like getting this thing to pair with a controller and all that fun stuff, it wasn't too bad. And I do plan on making a video on my very first time flying so you guys can see. It was probably 10 minutes of struggling, but then after that, it's been, you know, it stayed paired, it stayed connected to the goggles, all that good stuff every time I want to go up and fly again. So that's the Noobie drone. Acro.
Is there a platform that you prefer to buy this stuff from? Because I think this is the manufacturer site. Do they offer this on Amazon or even a different retailer site?
They would. Sorry, Amazon probably would. But I would suggest just buying straight from the people who the manufacturer, the people who actually make this thing, especially for niche hobbies like this. I've just found it most helpful to buy from them because they're a little bit more on top of the emails that they get from customers who have bought from them. So that's my fear. If I buy from Amazon and I'm trying to get answers from Noobie Drone without buying from them, they might not respond to me as quickly if I don't have like an order number.
Interesting.
And getting like parts from them, or really just the customer service side of things is why I would go with the manufacturer. So the rest, go ahead.
Options in this space, or just with this drone? Because I know you bought these pieces separate. Do they offer like a full kit?
They do. They have what they call bind and fly. Or sorry, no, they have ready to fly bundles. I'm not sure exactly where they are. So bind and fly is this little guy. So it doesn't come with anything. But even the same exact...
what is that bind and fly? What does that mean?
Just it doesn't come with goggles or a radio, basically. But it will bind to... It's not like it's a proprietary thing. Like you can bind it to other stuff.
Okay.
But if you wanted to buy a whole kit from them for $160, it comes with the drone, it comes with a little controller, and it comes with a headset and even a carrying case, which is kind of cool. Looks like 2 carrying cases, actually. So if... The reason I didn't go this way and the reason I personally wouldn't suggest this is because then you just kind of end up with a useless controller and a headset you're probably not the happiest with. I don't know, maybe I would be fine with this headset, but like the screen on this was way smaller, it wasn't quite as bright, and I think pairing it to other stuff is not as easy as the headset that I have now. So just thinking about like longevity of getting into this hobby, from the research that I had personally done and just my own like feelings about FPV droning, I knew that I was gonna be doing this for longer than like just one drone, or I had a very strong sense that I'd be doing this longer than just like these tiny little drones just for fun. So having this controller that looks bad to me, like the ergonomics of it look bad, the actual like buttons and all that stuff don't look all that great. It's not something that I would find all that useful having around. So spending an extra almost twice the price for, you know, a headset that's probably not that great and a controller that's not that great didn't seem worth it to me, when I could spend a little bit of money and use the controller for you know, more things that I wanted to do.
Okay, I have
the
a
box.
question then for looking back. Now, if somebody like me that had no idea if this is even what I wanted to do, is this the route that you would suggest a new person take because of the ease of just buying all that stuff together?
Again, you have to just think about what you want to do with the hobby. If you're looking for ease, you'd probably just go DJI.
Okay.
So knowing that I'm getting into this hobby to like learn how to solder and how to fix small electronics, like knowing that the problems that this hobby comes with are things that like skills that I actually want to build. That's why I'm diving into it the way that I am, rather than like the ease. If you're looking for something that's super easy and like you're not going to have any problems with, FPV is probably not the hobby for you, just being 1,000% honest, because you're flying something that you don't know how to fly, which usually equals you're going to have to fix it or continuously buy new ones. Just a hobby like this that's not like so much hand holding, even though like this compared to where drones started is like extremely hand holdy, right? But it still comes with a level of difficulty. So maybe 2 years in the future it will be things that will have changed. Drones, I don't know how technology will advance or whatever, but where we're at in the world right now, and the technology that I have in front of me, I would say that the way that I'm getting into it, I have no problems with. It's really hard for me to be like, yes, this is definitely the way everyone should get into FPV droning, because I have less than 1% experience with everything out there. But I personally don't look back and like regret any of the purchases that I've made. So I think that's
Something I think would be extremely helpful, even when I was thinking about buying a drone and watching a whole bunch of videos and just not knowing like what it is that I'm even looking for in a drone, is if you made some type of questionnaire of like, do you like soldering? Do you like doing this? Do you want to have goggles? Like having some type of simple questionnaire for people to answer, and then you can suggest like, should you go DJI? Should you go FPV? Should you go high price? Should you go mid cost? Like, I think just a simple thing that you could put together to like have people answer questions and then suggest something for them. I think this is something that you can do right now and then tweak as you get better. Like that same checklist that we're talking about is the same like questionnaire. Almost things that should be hand in hand, because I think the quick start guide or the pre-flight or whatever we're going to have is very FPV focused. But I think before that, there are questions that now or that I might be asking that you can answer, that looking back is going to be very difficult for you to answer. But if you answer them now or ask them now and then give the different options and then go, if they like to do this, I would suggest this. Because I think this is another piece of why I like to hear you and your opinions on things. Because you have a very like intellectual way of looking at it from your point of view, and then stepping back and looking at it from like a general perspective and then kind of giving advice from both angles.
Right. I think I can ask the questions now, but as far as answering them, that's something I'm struggling with. But that's a good way of putting it. Like if I just ask the questions that I have right now or write them down, that will help me in future be able to guide people better, and also people looking back at these videos be able to like, oh, like this is why he picked this stuff. So I think as I talk about the rest of the gear, those questions will maybe not be answered, but I'll be able to like point to them a little bit easier. So let me go ahead and go back to screen capping. You were asking about buying from Amazon. Most of this other stuff I did buy from Amazon, just for ease of returning. Honestly, I was pretty sure that I was going to return this radio that I got, the transmitter or the controller or whatever. I'll just call them transmitters for the sake of this video. But yeah, I was pretty sure I was going to return this. I had watched a couple review videos on this controller and was like more impressed than anything else that I saw at this price point, which this is actually going up a little bit. But
what translator is this?
Transmitter. It's a beta flight. A beta FPV, which is different than Beta Flight, which is another company. And it's just their two. They only make two transmitters. This one's the second generation of this. So they've made a lot of updates compared to the first one, which I'm pretty happy with, but it's still a $40 transmitter compared to most of the other ones, which are like 160, which is actually something I'm going to show. So the reason I got this is because the higher end one, the Team Black Sheep transmitter that I wanted, is out of stock. and it's still out of stock. So I'm glad that I purchased this, but it was kind of a impulse buy, if you will, that because I saw how long the delay times were for that other transmitter that I really wanted, that I think will be my main transmitter for most of my FPV career. So spending $40, and really what this allowed me to do was to plug into the, well, I can't show it, but I can show it. Oh, I'm not on camera, but I have it plugged into my computer right now, which means I can play the simulator with this controller and no longer an Xbox controller, which is actually a huge difference. If you have nothing else, just using an Xbox controller is fine. But if you want to get into this and not crash all the time and be able to practice, a simulator is a great way to go. And this tool is a great one to use with the simulator. So that's my little plug for this guy. And so again, like the mindset that went into buying this was like, this is kind of top of the line for the lowest end transmitters. Something that I'd be happy to give, you know, my little nephew or someone who's never flown before, like this controller, before I would give them another one that might, you know, be a little bit more delicate or whatever, or that I'd care more about. So just thinking about like, how can I share this and all those types of things, or even just give to somebody if I meet someone locally that like wants to get into it. I could, you know, when I upgrade my setup, I could give them this setup and not worry about it too much, so that they could practice and then we could go out and fly together and have more fun than if they like constantly have to wait on me to be available to fly or whatever. So if you were closer, I would have probably given this to you once I upgraded, but since you're so far away and don't have as much interest in this, I'll just be keeping it to myself. So kind of the same thing with this headset here. I'm not going to pronounce this name because I'm not exactly sure how to say it, but you guys can see it here on screen, and it'll be a link down in the description below. But these are FPV goggles with a DVR built in, which was very important to me because I did want to be able to share my footage with you guys. And also when you crash, you can go back and look at your DVR and see exactly where you went down. I'm pausing because I'm having problems with my video feed right now, and I'm not sure if it's the drone or these headsets. So this is not like a full-fledged endorsement for this headset, but this is currently what I'm using, and doing so with success. Not great success, but with some success. So probably, I don't know, you can do all the research in the world. There's a lot more educated people out there when it comes to this stuff. But again, this is my experience, and this is what I jumped into the hobby with. A big selling point for me on these goggles is actually the fact that these detach. So you can kind of see that line there that separates the place where you put it over your head and the actual like little screen there. So the fact that you can take that off and set it on a tripod, which I tried to do once, but it was a lot harder to fly with while Steven was here. I tried that out, and it looked like I didn't know how to fly at all. So it's definitely something you got to practice with. Or what I want to do in future is have two headsets, and this is going to be one that I can just set up for people to watch, and then the other one I'll actually be flying out of. So that's the plan there. But yeah, these are pretty feature rich, and the build on them is pretty durable so far. The antennas are not like the biggest things in the world, but you have to remember to carry them with you when you travel or go somewhere. Otherwise, it's a bad flying experience. So there's the goggles that I've been using. Now, this is the controller that I actually wanted, that I went out to buy. You can still see it's on back order here. This is the TBS, or Team Black Sheep Tango 2 Pro version of the controller, which just means the gimbals inside of the left and right thumbstick are a little bit smoother and will last a little bit longer, much longer, I should say, and that they fold down, which I don't know how big of a deal that is, paying like an extra $30 for those two things. I was like kind of on the fence with, but I'm like, if I'm going to spend, you know, $150 on a controller or $200 on a controller, I'd rather spend the extra $50 and make it last a little bit longer, or even make the resale value go up if I decided that this isn't something I wanted to stay into long term. So the reason I like this one over a lot of the older ones and more tried and true gear, which is something I usually go for, is just because of the form factor. Not only does it look like, you know, PS3 or whatever, PlayStation controller, whatever number they're on now, So it's something that I'm used to because I've played a lot of video games growing up, but also it's just way smaller to travel with, which that's going to be something that I plan on doing quite a lot with these controllers and all this gear, and just having stuff take up less space is always nice. So that's why I went with this one. And also I only plan on flying FPV and quadricopters, so having a bunch of other options and switches and dials and stuff on there is not something that I'm going to be using in future. At least I don't think I will be. Whew, sorry, a lot of talking. But that's where I'm at with this controller. I've been waiting for several weeks. It's probably close to 2 months now, back order. But getfpv.com is something that a lot of people talk very highly of, and I've seen that they are kind of the staple in the community for where to buy this gear. And I have been able to reach out to them, and they've gotten back to me in like 2 hours, just updating me on like, you know, when the last order came in, when it's going out, that kind of stuff. So again, buying from a good company, or one that the community suggests at least, is mostly about the customer service when it comes to these types of things. So 2 other things that I bought to go with this controller is this module that's going to go on the back. So the default signal that this sends is crossfire. This is like kind of the nerdier side of things, but if you're going to look at this as the stuff you need to know, which means that it can only pair with drones that have a crossfire receiver on them, which most of the mini whoops that I'm flying do not have crossfire, because crossfire is for mostly bigger drones that want to go farther and have a better connection. So
what is that crossfire? Is it a signal?
Yeah, it's basically the type of signal that it's sending out.
Okay.
I don't know too much of the ins and outs, but this is all the information I know. I'm about to dump on you guys, so it should take about 3 seconds for me to get it all out. But yeah, this is the module that I bought that will go on the back. It's $60, so it's even more expensive than the controller that I have now, but it will allow me to pair with things on other frequencies. I'm not sure if that's even the right verbiage there, but basically I can transmit with OpenTX and FreedomTX, which are what my newbie drone, the Acro B, currently uses. I believe is Freedom TX, don't quote me on that, but it's one of these 2, so I can actually send a signal to different types of drones, and these are a lot more used than the Crossfire. Even though the Crossfire is like kind of the higher end signal, these 2 are still important for me to be able to fly, because I like flying smaller drones anyways. So the end product should look something like this. So it doesn't add too much bulk. It's actually from the manufacturer, a couple of generations of this controller, which since they're on back order, I'll be getting the newest generation of this controller. But they've actually like built it in, so it's really easy to connect these 2 together. You don't actually have to do any soldering, which is really nice. And then this is the form factor that I'll be flying with. So I'm pretty excited about this. I'm glad that I did the research to figure all this out. It wasn't actually too hard to figure out, but just the knowledge that goes along with it. The other thing that I had to buy, and something that I'm considering printing actually, is a module bay. So this is just going to sit on the back of the controller and be a nice place for this to slot in, and to make sure that the ribbon cable doesn't get messed up when I'm plugging it in or whatever. Sorry, a lot of talking. So you actually just plug a ribbon cable straight into this controller right here, and then you cut a hole in it, in the actual casing itself, and run it up on the back here, and that's where it sits. So it should take, I've seen people do it on a couple of YouTube videos, it takes like all of 5 minutes to set up, which is really nice. And then you have this module on the back here. So I'm considering 3D printing this. I haven't found files for it, and this is definitely not something that I want to create myself, but maybe. So that's where I'm at. I don't know, I might buy it and then still end up 3D printing one that might be slightly differently, or just be able to get the files out there. That's something I gotta look into. It just crossed my mind. I think I heard someone in a video saying that they printed theirs, and I was like, oh, I could probably do that since I have a 3D printer. So that's where I'm at with that stuff. So that's the controller. This is the biggest investment that I was trying to make. They've taken my money, but I haven't actually gotten the controller yet. So yeah, this is a big piece of it. But again, I plan on having this for the life of my FPV hobby career or whatever it's going to be. So I didn't mind spending a little bit more money, and these are clearly wanted controllers. So selling it on a third party, or the resale value on this should stay pretty high, especially if you can't find them. So that's that. Then batteries for the newbie drone. They don't actually come with batteries. Maybe, I'm sorry, this ready to fly kit does come, I believe, with 4 of their batteries. But if you just buy the drone like I did, it will not come with any batteries. So you have to buy the batteries, and you also have to buy the battery charger. That took me like a couple extra days to get flying because I didn't think about buying the charger for the batteries. But yeah, that's batteries. These are 1S batteries. These are actually not the exact ones that I bought. The exact ones that I bought were not 380. They are 300 even. So same form factor. I'm not an expert, and I haven't done enough research to tell you all the differences of all the batteries and what the millihour amps, how that's going to change your flight or anything like that. So you can definitely do your own research on that. But I bought 6 of them, and that's about 30 minutes of flying for me, which is about how long I've been comfortable flying, actually. Anything past that, I start to feel like, I don't know, I'm just getting too aggressive, or I'm getting too out of control. So like 30 minutes of like good focused flying is about the right amount of time for me. And I'm doing that about once a week. I'd like to do it more, but we'll see how that goes. So those are the batteries. This is a charger I got, a cheap little $10 charger. With the S1s, I've found that they're not quite as delicate as some of the bigger ones. And I know that the lifespan of these are not going to be quite as long as some of the bigger ones, because these batteries it's $22 for 6 of them. So it's not like it's a ton of money. I'm hoping they last me 6 months. I'd be happy with that. So you can get more complicated chargers. I think this can actually be something that you spend a good amount of money on, like $1,000 or so, to get like a good charger for bigger batteries. That's going to be not quite like DJI smart charger level, but at least not burn your house down level. So that's what I'm attempting to do. So yeah, so far this has been fine. I can plug it into whatever wall wart that I have that takes USBs, and it charges up in about an hour. This can actually do 2 types of batteries, but I just have the one, and it's been working out perfectly fine for me so far. So I'll keep a track of that, and I'll let you guys know when this burns out, or when the batteries burn out, or whatever, all that good stuff. But so far, about 2 months in, and since March 14th, and it's May 3rd, no problems with this setup as far as the batteries go. So that's all the gear I currently have, at least that I've bought. I haven't gotten this new controller quite yet. I'm really stoked to get this because doing some testing with the controller that I have now, and it seems like it's not the most accurate thing in the world, which for $40 makes perfectly fine sense. But I almost did something really stupid that I want to put out there as kind of a warning. And that's like getting gear that it seems cool. You're seeing everyone on YouTube have it, but it just doesn't make sense for the level that you're at. I was like very close, and I think I actually have the in-stock reminder for these DJI goggles. They're digital goggles, so they send a different signal, and there's a lot of advantages to them, but you have to have the actual drone and all the other stuff that goes with it, and it's going to end up being, way more expensive. People even joke that if you're going to go ahead and buy these goggles, you might as well as buy their drone, which it might not actually be available anymore. But their drone was like $1,300, and you got, the drone and some other goodies. So it seemed like just buying that whole package was almost worth just buying it for these goggles. But anyways, all that aside, as I was putting this together, I thought that I'd throw this little bit of information in there and just like think about what you're really doing and the level that you're actually at. These goggles are, from what I've seen, like their image quality is way higher. They seem way more enjoyable to wear just because the form factor is like way smaller than what I have now. But I don't actually have a drone that can even talk to these, send the right signal to these goggles. So I just have these to put on a shelf somewhere and look nice, because I don't know if I'll ever have a drone that sends digital signal. Maybe once I start looking into building a 3-inch drone, which is kind of the next thing that I've been looking looking at is these 3-inch Cinewhoops. But currently, like, this is not in the game plan. So buying these goggles would do me no good. I just was like wanting so badly to have higher image quality, but it's not as easy as just like going and buying higher quality goggles. So it's just something to think about. Like, I don't know, I had a moment of weakness and I was like, oh, if I just spend the money, it will fix my problems. But it wasn't a very clearly thought through, process, or it's not as organized as I'm trying to be now, I guess is what I'm getting at. So just really think about the level that you're at. If you just got into droning and you're having fun flying your little mini whoop around, don't feel like you have to go out and then buy, the top of the line stuff immediately. You can kind of work your way up to it. And then also thinking about what you're actually going to be doing with these drones, I think is a big hiccup that I'm still working out. But again, seeing those opportunities to do photography and video with different companies in my area, I'm like, yeah, I should probably get into the Cinewhoop space. And even the Cinewhoops, I don't need these DJI goggles or even know if I'll be able to use them at all. So that's my little moment of weakness that I'm sharing with you guys. And then the next thing that I'm looking at, this is kind of the quote-unquote end game for me right now, is these 3-inch mini whoops, the Cinewhoops. This is kind of the form factor that they'll be looking at. I know basically nothing about them besides what these look like and what they're capable of, which is carrying a GoPro, which is what I would want to be carrying if I'm doing any type of footage. And so this is the next thing that I personally need to learn about. But this is what's keeping me excited about drone FPV. And I just saw this article and thought it was kind of funny, but you don't want a Maverick, you want a Cinewhoop. So I'll have to read through this because I didn't even read through it quite yet. But this was kind of the knowledge that I'm trying to gain as I'm asking myself those types of questions. Like, why would I be getting into this hobby or this side of the hobby rather than just going with the GPS drones and the Maverick stuff, which seems a lot easier to get into and I'd be able to get those shots right away. But I think as far as like being professional and knowing my gear inside and out, going this route is going to be more beneficial for all those types of things. All right, Steven, I need you to say something because I'm running out of breath here.
I think this is even interesting too. I've never heard of this drone DG or DJ. But going over these articles, I think is another piece where you can like shine light on insight, where it's like you're learning this stuff. It's who made this idea. Again, it's just like, this is an article that I read. This is what I pulled out of it. Again, your personal experience with it, your story of this is, because even as you were talking about all the equipment that you had, I was like, I wish we would have captured something right before the purchases, because there are questions that I have that I don't even know how to ask. That are like, what controllers did you choose from? What headsets did you choose from? Why did you choose this swoop? Because I know you were looking at some different style ones, and then you were looking on Facebook Marketplace, saw that Mr. Steele was offering this one, and that's why you bought this one. So it kind of took you in a different direction. Do you have like something to say about that? Should you have gone in a different direction, not bought the one from him, or the I can't even think of the name of it.
Tiny Hawk, the other one. Oh, the Acro Bee is the one I bought. The Tiny Hawk.
Acro Bee versus the Tiny Hawk, and why were you looking at both of those? It was just like, those are the pieces that I feel I need to be able to like ask questions, because I'm like, I don't know what path you took to get this, but at least now that you were here, you're explaining why you bought it and your past experience with it. But even the controller that you're about to buy, it would be nice to go like, how did you find that one? What were the choices and why did you pick that one? And are you still happy with waiting on a wait list? And I kind of feel like everything that you said tonight made me think, if I were getting into it, I would just buy the kit, because there's not any back order problems. There's not any, is this the right battery? Oh, I forgot the charge. It was just like everything would have been contained, and then allowed me to start that journey much quicker to then go, oh, you know what? I don't really like this controller. I want to upgrade this piece of it. I want to upgrade this headset. But I would have had at least something baseline to start with. I think I understand why you choose the decisions or made the decisions that you chose.
Right.
It makes sense, because you're trying to do kind of the next step, because you kind of feel like you're in it and you would enjoy it. And if those other factors are not something that I would even thought of, like, oh, I have to learn how to solder, I have to learn the technology, I have to learn the software. None of that stuff would have even been in my mindset. I would have just been like, I want to get into this, like the Tello. What do I need to buy I would suggest for people like me that just want to get in and get your hands dirty and try something, almost to buy the kit. But if you are like Nathaniel and thinking a little bit more future, maybe it is better to piece that stuff together, because you get the experience of buying that stuff and then go, what is it that I actually need? So now that I'm solving this problem for this drone, I kind of already have a heads up for the next drone that I'm going to buy. I know I need this
Right.
to have this type of communication. I need this drone to have this equipment to go with it, or this software, whatever the case may be. You're already learning a lot more than me when I would have bought the thing, flown it, and been like, okay, I'm ready for the next. Then it's like, now I have to do all that research. You're kind of one step ahead of me if I went down that path.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's different, right? Like, I would go with whatever your gut is kind of telling you, and maybe also, like, if you've done anything like this in past, just looking at, like, the way that, like, if there are things you regret or whatever. I think I'm taking knowledge from my computer building that I did at the beginning of the pandemic. Like, I've been using computers since I was whatever, like basically all my life. I've had my own laptop since I was like 12, thanks to you, Grandma, and like a higher end Mac laptop. So I've been into technology for quite a while. And my brother-in-law actually gave me a very nice built gaming computer when I was maybe like 15 or so. And that computer like got me to be a lot more into like the software side of things, but I was always like deathly afraid of like cracking into it, even though that's like kind of what it's built for. Like, gaming computers are modular and you can take them apart and do all this stuff, but I never did that just because it was like already built and I didn't want to like fuss with it at all. So I just, like, my knowledge of it was very low, and I think that's the way that I'm coming into the drone space, is I'm trying to like flip that on its head. So that was something I regretted, was never just like playing with the actual hardware that I had at my fingertips more so I could understand it. So that's what I'm trying to do with the droning now, is like, if I just buy these pieces, can I make them fit together? I think I got confidence from the 3D printer and being able to like build that and put that all together and understand, you know, a little bit more of like the physical space hardware stuff that's going on. So that's my perspective on the droning, is like, if I'm going to get into this, I want to know like every nut and bolt of this thing before I even get flying. That's some of the fun for me, but also it's like, it's going to encourage me that when things break, I can actually fix them myself. I think if I bought that ready to bind kit and for whatever reason, you know, 1 out of 100 of them don't work, that's not an actual stat, I'm just saying, like, hypothetically, if that was real, and I got the one that didn't like just bind and fly, I would be like, like, this is already too much work, I don't want to like mess with this thing, I'll just send it back and have them, you know, send me a new one or whatever. And it's just like, that kind of takes the wind out of the sails for me. Whereas like, if I'm at least the one making the mistakes, like, I get to choose, do I want to void warranties, or do I want to like, you know, backpedal a little bit and take this thing another direction? So I think that's where I'm at with it. But I definitely hear where you're coming from too, where it's like, you're kind of at the place where you like, you don't really care, you just want to fly or see if you'll enjoy flying, and then you'll dive into it deeper. But like I said, from like the feeling that I got about this hobby, I was like, yeah, I kind of know that this is something I'm going to dive deep into. So I'm going to go kind of one step beyond that ready to fly kit. Like, I didn't feel like that was necessary for me. I didn't even mind if it took me several weeks to get up, as long as I like had the gear in my hands and I was trying to figure out like, okay, why are these things not talking to each other or whatever. But happily, after buying all that stuff, I got it to work in like 5 minutes, and I was like, all right, cool, now we can focus on the flying aspect of this hobby.
Yeah, so you weren't just like, I want to buy this thing and fly tomorrow. You were doing it for a purpose and going, this has some longevity. I want to gain knowledge more than just like the flying aspect of it. So I think that balance too. This is why I think the questionnaire might be very beneficial to like newer people, but you should start writing all of these questions that you have down and then just having a questionnaire for it, because you could even do a playlist in that same kind of way. Like, do you prefer A or B? And then just like, here's a video where I talked about this and my perspective on this. But if you're the other way, then this is what I suggest, and this is why I suggest you doing this. Now, I don't know if it needs to be that big of production, but from the producer standpoint, I feel like that's my job. But just, if this podcast is truly to record your journey and help other people, I do think there are additional elements that you will need to add to truly speed up people's learning process, or even getting into it process. I think me and you do a lot of thinking and brainstorming and calling each other, but I don't know, like, if I was trying to get into a hobby that I don't know anybody, having a questionnaire of somebody that's gone a little bit ahead of me would have been like tremendously beneficial, where I'd have been like, oh, let me go through this questionnaire so at least I have a better understanding of what direction I should go in and speed up my learning process, because I don't know if I want an FPV or if I want a cinematic drone or a cinematic whoop, or I don't know any of these things. But at least if I can answer these questions and going, no, I definitely don't want to spend time learning all that stuff. I want to get flying immediately. Oh, the kit is something that you suggest. Either a kit of an FPV or something like the Tele, where it's just like ready to fly out the box. I don't need
anything.
all the think about the headset and think about the controller and think about what signals is sending out. Like, that's too overwhelming for me right now. I just want to buy the thing. Or if you answer the questionnaire, like, I love to problem solve. I love to get my hands dirty. I am mechanically inclined. Like, oh, I do want to buy all of these pieces. This is kind of Nathaniel's journey. Yes, I'm on board with this. I want to follow Nathaniel's path because I'm the same type of mentality. I want to hear what he has to say because he's slightly ahead of me as he's learning these steps.
Right. No, I think the questions is a really good way of organizing those thoughts. Like, I think challenges is a good, like, actionable step, but I think the question is beforehand, and even a way for me to like think about how am I going to organize these shows. It could almost be like, let's just answer this question, this show, and take kind of a deeper dive. So if I was going to give this show a title as under this question idea, it would be like, what gear should I have, or what gear do I personally have right now, or something along those lines. So I really like the idea of trying to stay organized by answering the right questions and not just coming on here for an hour and ranting about whatever. So
I could maybe help with that too, is just like, what questions are people asking, or what questions do I have? But I think even the questions that you're asking yourself, just like going through that process, you have a question. How do you fund your hobby? These are questions that you should start putting together and then asking other people. That's what your interview should be, because I think that lends itself perfectly to how people are searching. Because the same questions that you have, I can almost guarantee that other people will have and ask that question. If I want to get into cinematic whoop, what gear do I need? I'm sure that's a pretty common question that people are asking. Maybe not in that style, but that idea of that question. It might just need to go, how are people asking this? But this is really information that they're asking. If you want to do cinematic whoop, 3-inch, here's the gear that's suggested. That's why I said, like, going from slightly 10,000 foot view of just like, here's an overview of all of this stuff. It's super overwhelming. Here's what I picked, and why I picked it is super beneficial to me, because I don't necessarily want to hear like the top 10 or the best of, or like the car and driver way of doing it, where it's not like they're really giving you the best of the best of the best. It's like, here's the best in class for this. Here's the best in class for this. And then really, here's the car and driver most suggested because of, and then give the opinion for it. I feel like that's
the reason behind that gear. Yeah.
Most of the time it's like, here's the cheapest, here's the most expensive, here's the best, and here's what I chose and why I chose it.
Yeah, all from my perspective, of course, because I'm 2 months into this thing. All right, guys, thank you so much.
But you can have facts. You can have, this is the most expensive, this is the cheapest. Like, there are things that I think you can lean on. I think that's the same car and driver way. It's like, they don't have all the information of all the new cars, but at least they go, here's price, quiet, like some standard things that I think people will search for. And then your opinion, I feel, will be the same, like car and driver feel. People will go to Nathaniel for his opinion on this because they know where he's coming from.
Right. I agree.
All right, single yourself and then send out of here. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for being around this week. If you enjoyed this live stream, please come back next week at Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to be reminded, you can subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. If anything that me or Steven are saying connected with you guys, please leave a comment down below, as we want to know what is piquing you guys' interest and what is useful out of these hour-long live streams that we're doing. But yeah, appreciate your time, and until next week, we'll see you.